that we're one of the longest running liberation organizations in the United States of America, and we are an above ground organization, which means we operate on a level where we show everything that we're doing in the community. Can we work on the mic then? But everything we do in the community is something that we want to present to you and really work on how we're going to go about celebrating not only the history and legacy of these heroes that were named, but you know, the legacies of what General Tubman, as we like to call her, was fighting for, what Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, and all these different organizations, different leaders like Huey P. Newton of the Black Panther Party, and just their relation and what was necessary during that time of struggle. A lot of times, you know, one thing I want to really declare before I get this presentation started is InPDUM is an African internationalist organization. And a lot of times you hear about black nationalist groups who are culture nationalists, who fight for their race. That is not something that we are. And I really want to make that clear, because in the 1960s, there were organizations founded on that belief that black power needed to be fought for, that in order for us to gain a stage in which to speak, in order for us to gain the opportunity to have our voices heard, that power had to be fought for. But us living in 2012, we can have a historical analysis of what these freedom fighters and what these history makers have done and continue their struggle. Not only celebrate their births and their deaths, but continue to fight and in ultimate expand their goals and their dreams, expand the beliefs that they were fighting for and the initial education that they brought to the table, because of the fact that now we have mentors to look at. We have literature and different writing speakers to lead the way, when before in the 1960s they had nothing. They were operating from the bare minimum, from only, you know, what they could see. And now we have a real historical perspective. This month is a great month for us to talk about it, but we really have to realize that, you know, we can't just discuss it 1 month out of the year, and it's not just black history, it's African history on an international level. There's history that's being impacted to this day. There's different struggles going on throughout the world that we need to be aware of and that we need to fight for and support in any way we can. And the first way we do it is through these educational forums, these discussions, where we can get our own community, our own youth involved in the debate, involved in these types of liberation struggles that seem to have fallen off the grid, that seem to be not talked about on a daily basis when they really need to be. And so that's just a little history about our organization. InPDUM, we bring up struggles that other people often don't like to touch, because we know that it's necessary for us to speak up and to speak out, even if something is considered hush. And so that's why we're very upfront about who we are as a revolutionary organization. We intend to bring change to our communities and to the oppressed people around the world. And that is why we support all types of liberation organizations, whether they're a Mexican movement, whether they're a Palestinian movement, whether they're any type of movement for the liberation of a peoples. We support that, and we support fighting for oppressed people in solidarity with them around the world. So I really wanted to make that clear that we're not this black nationalist type of organization, and we actually support the theory of African internationalism. And that's the belief that Africans, through our historical understanding of the colonialization that happened in Africa, have been split up and separated throughout the world as a whole, and we're declared minorities in all these places where we reside, but in reality we're 1 billion strong. And if we can unite under this African internationalism, if something affected us here in San Diego, if something was to happen to an African in Florida, in St. Petersburg, in Sierra Leone, Africa, in Belgium, in the UK, London, then we as Africans can unite and with one voice say, no, this is wrong, you cannot treat people like this. And that is why, you know, I am here today to spread this information, to talk to you about our organization, but also talk to you about in the context of Black history, in the context of this African history, so that we can really understand and struggle around not only celebrating that history, but continuing that fight and continuing to bring this awareness to people around the world. So just talking about the legacy of Black history, you know, a lot of times you hear about Malcolm X, you hear about Martin Luther King, you hear about the Black Panthers, you hear about the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, and you hear about all these liberation organizations and what they were fighting for and how they united youth, campuses, old and young, to fight for bringing this message to our people. And so we really have to go back in history and we have to look at their legacy. We have to look at the legacy of these types of organizers and these leaders. And one outstanding detail that you can see through all of these movements, all of these leaders, when they speak, when they're talking about, they have organization behind them. They have a structure in which, if they were to pass, they would be able to continue on this fight. It's not about one person. It's not about the individual. You know, our society really likes to glorify the individual and make it seem like that one person alone is the one that made the change. But in reality, it's the people united. You know, Huey P. Newton of the Black Panther Party was thrust forward into a period of you know, crisis, and he was pushed forward as a leader. But the only reason that Huey P. Newton is known today is because of the people who supported him, the people who fought for him on the numerous court cases brought against him, just like Martin Luther King, just like Malcolm X. If they did not have organization behind them, if they did not have the structure, then they would not be able to continue this fight. Then they would not have the defense of the people, of the masses. And that's why we are the International People's Democratic Uhuru Movement, because we are the revolutionary fighting force of the masses, and we bring political awareness to our communities. We talk about all the issues. We're not just attempting to free one prisoner. We're not attempting to single out one issue in our community. We understand that there's a lot of present things that we must discuss, that we must bring to the table and address in order for real revolutionary change to occur. And when I say revolutionary, a lot of people think radical, a lot of people think, you know, you want to fight. Revolutionary just means a complete change. It just means not attempting to, you know, join hands with an oppressive system, but to change that system so that it supports all oppressed people, so that we can flip the script and really make it for the people instead of what it currently is today. And to put that in perspective, I'll be talking about some of the different, I guess, broad spectrums that we discussed would be, you know, we talk about the education issue going on in America. We're talking about the economic development issues affecting our communities and how we can promote economic development in our communities. We're talking about prisons and their role in the United States, how a majority of people who look like us are in prison to this day, and why that is, and through historical analysis see what we can do to fight that. We're going to be talking about the public safety issue in our communities, not only the horizontal violence that we deem committed against each other that's often referred to as black-on-black crime, but also vertical violence that's imposed on our community through police containment, through you know, numerous shows of force. When we understand that there are more police in our community, and we raise the question, you know, if they're here to protect and serve us, and there's more